Imagine waking up in the world of One Piece and becoming Kaido's twin? Meet Mu Yun, a traveler who ate the artificial fish fruit, but not just any fruit. This one transforms him into a mythical beast, the Blue Dragon. Now the world is in chaos. Sengoku is asking questions, Vegapunk is staying quiet, and even Kaido's crew is wondering if he has an illegitimate child. In the land of Wano, two giant dragons, one blue, one black, face off in an epic struggle. Kaido wants Mu Yun to submit, but Mu Yun has other plans to be the number one. Will Mu Yun rise to the top, or will he remain in Kaido's shadow? Get ready for the ultimate dragon showdown in Pirates, eat artificial fruit and become Kaido too. Subscribe to the Manhwa Novels channel to follow this exciting story, and without further ado, let's get started.
Audio Jungle.
The New World, Agate Island. Come on, some people, take these failed products aboard. Yes, sir. Hurry up, hurry up. These failed products of Vegapunk have to be submitted to the higher-ups for review, so be quick. Vegapunk failed products? Listening to the noisy noise in his ears, Mu Yun shook his confused head and slowly opened his eyes. A huge warship stood in front of him, surrounded by busy figures in naval uniforms. Where am I? Looking at the unfamiliar scene in front of him, Mu Yun was a little at a loss. Clearly, he was in his room just a second ago, but in the blink of an eye, he came to this strange place. Suddenly, Mu Yun felt a sharp pain in his head, and frame after frame of strange pictures emerged from his mind. Those pictures were like needles piercing Mu Yun's mind. Ah! Mu Yun held his head tightly with both hands and rolled on the ground in pain. Hey, what the hell is going on? The Navy standing next to Mu Yun looked at Mu Yun rolling on the ground and hurried forward to check. Soon, the pain in Mu Yun's head began to slowly disappear. Mu Yun panted weakly, and his body seemed to be wet by rain, and his sweat had soaked his clothes. What the hell? I actually traveled to One Piece and became Vegapunk's failed experiment? Mu Yun sorted out the memories that suddenly appeared in his mind and found that he had inexplicably traveled to the world of One Piece. Let it be a travel, others have traveled to the side of the protagonist or something. Even if he didn't travel to the protagonist, he could just travel to the four seas. Even traveling to the Grand Line would be acceptable, but teleporting to a new world full of dangers would be too much. He also became someone else's experimental subject. Fortunately, this body was created by Vegapunk using the Lunaria tribe as a template. The Lunaria tribe is a famously strong race in One Piece. The reason why Vegapunk considered it a failed work is also quite strange. When Mu Yun was created, he didn't have the black wings unique to the Lunaria tribe, but only the unique flame ability of this race. Fortunately, there were no black wings behind him, and Mu Yun breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want to be mistaken for a Birdman. Except for this insignificant shortcoming, Mu Yun now inherited all the powerful characteristics of this race. Hey, you're not okay. A Navy officer asked Mu Yun carefully with a musket in his hand. Mu Yun waved his hand and slowly stood up with his hands. I'm fine, thank you for your concern. It's not the time to attract attention, Mu Yun said in his heart. Through memory, Mu Yun realized that his current situation is very dangerous. It turns out that the five elders will take away the failed experiments of Vegapunk regularly under the pretext of inspection, but in fact they are secretly handed over to others for research. If there is no value, they will destroy these products. And Mu Yun is what the five elders specifically asked for. If you go to the five elders, it would be wishful thinking to want to escape. After all, those five old guys are not vegetarians. Mu Yun frowned. He whispered in a low voice, how can we get rid of the predicament here? Now the port is surrounded by the Navy, and it is impossible to leave. Even if it can escape from the port, no ship can escape from Agate Island. Because this island is under the control of the world government, other ships will not be allowed to approach here. In order to protect the safety of this island, the world government has also specially arranged a general to guard it. Now they could only follow this group of Navy and leave, and find an island to escape halfway. After thinking of the escape strategy, Mu Yun slowly relaxed and began to observe around. The Navy guarding Mu Yun breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that Mu Yun was fine. After all, even if these experimental products were marked as failed products, each one was worth a lot of money. If Mu Yun broke down in their hands, they would be seriously derelict in their duty. "Let's go, time is very tight," a Navy urged behind Mu Yun. "Sorry, are we going directly to Mary Geo's? Or will we rest on the way?" Mu Yun smiled embarrassedly, and then chatted with the Navy around him to find out the news. After all, this determined where he would start the action. It should be going directly to Mary Geo's, after all. The mission is required to be completed as soon as possible. The Navy around him also let down his guard and replied, "Yeah, I don't know why this mission is so urgent. I heard that there are things that the celestial dragons are interested in this batch of failed experiments, so they put pressure on the higher-ups. I heard that Marshal Zhangguo was furious about this matter." The relaxed atmosphere made the Navy around him start chatting. Mu Yun also heard a lot of information he needed in these chats. The celestial dragons actually failed in this transportation mission. Is there something in the failed products that attracts the celestial dragons? No, the celestial dragons have money and people. They only want rare things. Why would they want these failed products? Could it be? Mu Yun stretched out his hand and looked at his brown skin. Could it be that they are attracted to me? He is not an ordinary human now. Mu Yun is now a member of the Lunaria tribe. Failed product in terms of scarcity, it is even more scarce than mermaids. The more Mu Yun thought about it, the closer he felt to the answer. Danger. No, I must find a way to escape. I must not go to Marihoa. If I become a plaything of the celestial dragons, I will be worse off than dead. I must not become a plaything of the celestial dragons. I finally came to the world of One Piece, but I lost my freedom without experiencing anything. Isn't that a pity? Mu Yun's mood suddenly became nervous, and a wisp of flame began to emerge behind him, and the flame burned out of thin air. As Mu Yun's expression became more nervous, the flame behind him became more and more fierce. Danger! The Navy looked at the fierce flames rising behind Mu Yun and immediately dodged to the side. What happened? There's an emergency here. The Navy around immediately picked up their weapons and surrounded Mu Yun. Mu Yun glanced at the huge flames burning behind him and sighed. It seems that this is troublesome. I tried not to attract attention, but I still became the focus. Mu Yun didn't do it on purpose. After all, he hadn't adapted to this body yet, and he couldn't control the flames behind him. Test subject number 2, raise your hands and surrender. Don't let us use force to hurt you. At this time, a general wearing a white cloak with justice printed on the back walked up to Mu Yun and persuaded him to give up resistance. If you have to lose your freedom in exchange for a chance to live, Mu Yun said as he took an attacking stance and shouted, I refuse. The enemy was in a hurry to get back to the city. It seems that we can only use force. The higher-ups clearly asked us to bring you back in good condition. The Vice Admiral pulled out the long sword hanging from his waist, pointed it at Mu Yun, and ordered, everyone shoot. Yes, Vice Admiral Stalabari. The Navy members around him immediately raised their muskets and shot at Mu Yun. Mu Yun jumped up instinctively, but he didn't expect that he would jump 3 meters high. Countless ammunition passed by Mu Yun and hit the rock wall behind him. After the gunshots ended, Mu Yun slowly landed. He looked at his legs in disbelief. This body is really amazing. Feeling the strong talent brought by the Lunaria bloodline, Mu Yun was excited. In this world where the strong are respected, strong strength is the foundation for survival. Seeing that the gun attack did not work, the rear admiral disappeared from Mu Yun's sight in an instant. Shave! Lieutenant General Stalabari came to Mu Yun with a knife and stabbed Mu Yun's arm with the sword. After all, The requirement above is to be alive, and he cannot be killed. A strong sense of threat came, and the flames behind Mu Yun burst instantly. Mu Yun subconsciously dodged the moment Stalabri disappeared, but it was still a step too late. The long knife instantly passed through Mu Yun's clothes and stabbed on Mu Yun's right arm. Bang! The imagined scene of the long knife piercing the arm did not appear. The long knife slashed across Mu Yun's right arm, leaving a white mark on Mu Yun's right arm. "What?" Stalabri exclaimed. Mu Yun was also stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. Now was the time to fight back. He clenched his left fist and smashed it towards Stalabri's chest in front of him. As his fist swung, a flame rose from Mu Yun's fist like a fire dragon. Stalabri's heart sank, and he tapped his feet on the ground a few times, and quickly dodged backwards. Mu Yun's fist brushed past Stalabri's body and did not hit him. Stalabri retreated backwards one after another, keeping a distance from Mu Yun. Looking at the cut on Mu Yun's right arm torn by the blade, Stalabri's eyes flashed with surprise, but then he regained his composure. It's really worthy of the bloodline of the Lunaria tribe. This defense is as hard as steel. Mu Yun raised his right arm and looked at the place that was attacked before. I didn't expect my defense to be so strong. I am worthy of my Lunaria bloodline. He had watched One Piece before and knew the characteristics of the Lunaria tribe very well. When the flames burned behind them, the Lunaria tribe was like wearing an indestructible armor, and their defense became particularly strong. However, once the flames disappeared, their defense would drop suddenly, but their speed would increase rapidly like lightning. "Boy, surrender." Stalabri's eyes were like knives, staring at Mu Yun tightly and persuading him earnestly. "It's a foolish dream to want me to give up resistance." Mu Yun clenched his fists, the flames wrapped around his hands, and quickly rushed towards the Major General. Stalabri raised the long sword in his hand, and an inexplicable momentum rose from Stalabri. The long sword in his hand was instantly dyed black, as if it was sprayed with a layer of black paint. Armament color domineering. Mu Yun clenched his fists, surrounded by flames, and rushed towards Stalabri. He used all his strength to punch the opponent. Stalabri raised his knife to meet him. Clang! The two forces collided with each other, making a loud noise. Mu Yun was shocked and took a few steps back, while Stalabri just shook his body slightly. He swung his knife again and attacked. Mu Yun dodged flexibly and punched Stalabri from time to time. Stalabri used the blade to block Mu Yun's attack and stabbed the long knife against Mu Yun's arm into his body. Not good. Mu Yun quickly reached out and grabbed the stabbing long knife like a gust of wind. Puff! The black blade pierced into Mu Yun's body. Fortunately, Mu Yun reached out and stopped the sword at the critical moment, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. "It seems that your defense is just so-so. Just surrender obediently, so that I don't have to injure you again." Stalabri looked at the bright red blood flowing on the long knife in his hand and persuaded. Suddenly, an inexplicable aura emanated from the boy in front of him. "What is this?" Stalabri's expression was solemn, and he drew his sword and quickly retreated. Just as Stalabri retreated, an invisible aura instantly burst out from Mu Yun. Hegemony domineering aura. Stalabri was shocked, and his body began to tremble inexplicably. This momentum spread wildly around, and soon enveloped the entire Heed Island. The Navy members surrounding Mu Yun rolled their eyes and fell to the ground lifelessly. Only Stalabri stepped the long sword into the ground, and stood there with trembling hands holding the long sword. How could this happen? This kind of king-domineering aura that only one person among millions of people has, how could this unknown kid get it? What happened? Mu Yun looked around absent-mindedly, and soon the wounds on his body brought his consciousness back to reality. Hiss! Mu Yun covered the injured part, and the severe pain made him gasp. Sure enough, we still can't underestimate the strong in this world. I almost died. Mu Yun glanced at the naval troops lying around, and then at Stalabri, who was having trouble standing. Isn't this a great opportunity to escape? No one can stop me anymore. Mu Yun hurriedly dragged his injured body and ran towards the warship docked on the side. Although he was not particularly good at driving a warship, it was better than waiting to die here. Stop! Don't! Go forward! Strawberry wanted to reach out to stop Mu Yun from moving forward, but as soon as he stretched out his hand, he fell down. Now he couldn't even stand up, let alone stop Mu Yun from moving forward. Everything happened too suddenly, and he was not prepared at all. Mu Yun heard Strawberry shouting behind him, and he continued to move forward without looking back. Only a fool would listen to you. The free world is waving to me. I will not give up such a rare opportunity. The flames behind Mu Yun went out, and he quickened his pace like the wind, and his mood became as happy as a flying bird. Just as he stepped one foot on the deck of the warship, suddenly, a golden laser hit Mu Yun in an instant. Ah! The powerful impact of the laser instantly sent Mu Yun flying like a cannonball. It's so scary, the enemy almost escaped. A tall, wretched man in a yellow suit and sunglasses slowly walked down from the warship. Stolberg, this is a serious dereliction of duty. The old man was so angry that he was about to die. Admiral Borsalino, seeing the person coming, Stolberg breathed a sigh of relief. The one who came was Admiral Borsalino, one of the three major faces of the Navy. It seems that the movement just now made Admiral Borsalino aware of the abnormality here. Stolberg looked at Mu Yun, who fell to the ground with pity. I really don't know whether you are lucky or unlucky. You awakened the Conqueror's color, but attracted this monster. Damn it! Mu Yun gritted his teeth, propped up his upper body with his hands, and looked in the direction where the laser had just been shot. He felt severe pain all over his body, and there was a dark mark on his chest. The internal organs in the body were tangled together. How could a monster like you come here? Is the Navy idle now? Mu Yun shouted at Borsalino. It's okay. Although there are always troublesome things happening on the sea, my current duty is just to defend this island. Other things have nothing to do with me. Borsalino walked slowly towards Mu Yun and said lightly, Brother, can you be obedient and give up resistance? I just want to be free. Can't even this simple wish be satisfied? Mu Yun looked at Borsalino, who was walking towards him with a serious expression. He clenched his fists, and a raging fire burned behind his back, and his hands were soon wrapped in flames. Now he is facing the highest combat power of the Navy, and it seems that he can only fight to the death. Looking at Mu Yun, who was in an attacking posture, Borsalino smiled contemptuously, don't know whether to live or die. Suddenly, a light flashed, and Borsalino's tall figure instantly disappeared from Mu Yun's eyes. Speed is weight. Borsalino's voice suddenly came from behind Mu Yun. Not good. Mu Yun quickly turned around and found that Borsalino had come behind him in the blink of an eye. Borsalino raised his right leg, and his slowly raised right leg began to shine. Mu Yun immediately crossed his arms in front of his chest. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? With a flash of light, Mu Yun was kicked out by Borsalino in an instant. With a strong impact, Mu Yun smashed the failed work of Begabank that the Navy brought over to the side and scattered it all over the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, Mu Yun was embedded in the wall. The strong impact caused the wall to crack into many spider web-like cracks. Ah! Mu Yun screamed and coughed blood from his mouth. Mu Yun slowly slid down from the wall to the ground and collapsed beside the wall. Give up. There is no way to beat him. Giving up can at least save my life. My body hurts. Why do I have to suffer like this? Mu Yun lowered his head and looked at the ground blankly. It was as if he was hallucinating, and someone kept asking him to give up. Yes, wouldn't it be better to give up earlier? Mu Yun's upper body slowly slid down from the wall, and he lay on his side on the ground. He looked at the boundless sea with his eyes blankly. Ah, the sea is so blue. The blue sea seemed to have magic, deeply attracting Mu Yun's eyes. Looking at the blue sea, Mu Yun's heart gradually began to calm down. Why should I give up now? I just came to this world, this colorful world. My adventure has just begun. Look for like-minded partners and go on a thrilling adventure. How could my journey stop here? Suddenly, a strange fruit that looked like it was covered with dragon scales rolled in front of Mu Yun. Evil, devil fruit. Looking at the fruit in front of him, Mu Yun was shocked. At this moment, the treasure of the sea suddenly appeared in front of him, as if urging Mu Yun. Fateful encounter. Asshole, what are you doing? Seeing Mu Yun eat the fruit, Strawberry was shocked. That fruit was to be given to the special existence above, and it was also the existence designated by the world government. Now it was eaten by this guy. Eat it. Borsalino looked at Mu Yun, who swallowed the devil fruit, and asked Strawberry behind him. Strawberry, do you know what fruit that is? I heard from Vegabank that it seems to be an animal that failed in research. Physical fruit. Hearing Strawberry's answer, Borsalino joked, failure. That guy really dares to say that. Mu Yun swallowed the whole fruit with great effort, and suddenly a feeling of nausea came from his abdomen. Ugh! Mu Yun lay on the ground and kept retching. Although he had prepared himself mentally, the nausea of the devil fruit was still so strong. It was like eating a big lump. Suddenly, Mu Yun felt an inexplicable power coming from his body. This power was helping Mu Yun to repair the injured parts before. A powerful life energy emanated from Mu Yun. What? Strawberry looked at Mu Yun, who had recovered from his injuries, in surprise. He didn't expect that the failed fruit could repair his injuries. Borsalino whistled and chuckled. It looks interesting. Feeling the powerful energy contained in his body, Mu Yun couldn't help but laugh. With this power, I can definitely escape. Mu Yun's eyes flashed with light, and he subconsciously clenched his fists. Borsalino, the second round begins. Hey, it seems that I didn't hit him lightly just now. Borsalino instantly turned into a golden light and flashed in front of Mu Yun, crossing his hands in front of him, and two bright flashes condensed in his hands. Yashikani no Magatama. Instantly, countless lasers shot out from Borsalino's hands. Mu Yun took a deep breath, facing the direction of the laser, and exhaled a burst of fire. Hot breath. The explosive breath collided with the laser in the air, and with a bang, it exploded. A powerful shock wave rushed out from the collision point. The explosion emitted strong heat, and a big hole was burned through the ground at the center. Looking at the destroyed environment in front of him, Mu Yun couldn't help but clench his fists. I can do it. With this kind of power, I can definitely live a wonderful life in this world. Alala, it's really a big fuss. At this time, the smoke from the explosion dissipated, and Borsalino slowly walked out of the smoke. I saw that his yellow suit had some wrinkles at this time, and there were traces of burning in some places. The Navy members and Vice Admiral Strawberry who fainted around them all disappeared. Only Mu Yun and Borsalino were left in the entire port. Borsalino's eyes under the sunglasses became serious, and he said, I have cleared all the guys who are in the way, and now I can finally let go and act. The sword was pierced by a cloud of clouds. Sword of the sky. Borsalino held his right hand in the air, and a ball of light condensed from his empty right hand, and it turned into a lightsaber. Then Borsalino rushed to Mu Yun with the lightsaber in his hand. Mu Yun's hands gradually turned into the form of dragon claws, his arms were covered with black scales, and flames wrapped around Mu Yun's claws. Explosive claws. The lightsaber and the flaming dragon claws collided with each other, making a harsh explosion. Borsalino quickly waved the lightsaber, and Mu Yun tried his best to resist with the dragon claws. Gradually, Borsalino's attack turned into a series of afterimages, and Mu Yun was a little unable to resist. Hot breath. Mu Yun saw that the situation was not good, and immediately took a deep breath and exhaled hot breath from his mouth, trying to disrupt Borsalino's attack rhythm. Borsalino immediately turned into a flash of light and disappeared in front of Mu Yun. Then the flash gradually condensed behind Mu Yun. Damn it! Mu Yun gritted his teeth and shouted. Borsalino kicked Mu Yun away, but at this time, Mu Yun was already covered with dragon scales, and Borsalino's kick did not cause much damage to Mu Yun, but just kicked him away. Mu Yun quickly adjusted his body shape in the air and stomped his feet on the ground, leaving deep marks on the ground. The natural fruit is really troublesome, or the speed type ability of the shining fruit. What should I do? Mu Yun looked at Borsalino standing not far away with a serious expression. His head kept thinking about how to get out of the current dilemma. Natural devil fruit users can transform their bodies into elements to avoid enemy attacks. Except for Sea Stone, which is a natural restraint for users, only armament haki can attack them. But there is no Sea Stone for Mu Yun to use, and Mu Yun does not know advanced things like armament haki. It's really tricky. Mu Yun couldn't help but sigh. He thought for a long time, but couldn't think of a solution, so he had to bite the bullet. Borsalino didn't intend to give Mu Yun too much time to think, and he threw the lightsaber in his hand quickly towards Mu Yun. Then he crossed his hands on his chest, and his hands were shining. Yashikani no Magatama. Countless lasers followed the lightsaber thrown before and attacked Mu Yun. Mu Yun quickly dodged the lightsaber thrown by Borsalino, and then waved a pair of dragon claws burning with flames. All the laser bullets were swept away. Suddenly, the light bullets swept away by Mu Yun turned into the light and shadow of Borsalino. What? I haven't heard that the natural fruit can be operated like this. Mu Yun was shocked. One Borsalino was enough to make him suffer. Now there are so many Borsalinos, how can he fight them? The Sky Cloud Sword. Countless Borsalino clones shouted in a low voice. Light swords condensed from the right hands of these clones, and then Borsalino's clones quickly rushed towards Mu Yun. There is no other way, this is the only way. Mu Yun clenched his hands, and groups of fiery red smoke rose from the bottom of Mu Yun's feet, quickly hiding his figure. Huh? Borsalino raised his eyebrows, as if he had discovered something interesting. He threw the Sky Cloud light sword in his hand into the smoke that wrapped Mu Yun, and the other clones followed the main body. Boom! An explosion sounded from the smoke, and the powerful explosion blew away the smoke. Borsalino dispersed the clones around him, and looked at the center of the explosion with his hands in his pockets. So you ate this fruit, Borsalino said slowly. It seems that Vegabank played a trick on you, and this form is not a failed work. The smoke dissipated, and there was no sign of Mu Yun on the ground at the center of the explosion. But at this time, a dragon covered with black scales was hovering in the air, like a mythical dragon. I didn't expect that just relying on the guidance of fate, eating this fruit would turn out to be. The dragon spoke in human language, but the voice could be heard as Mu Yun's voice, fish fruit phantom beast blue dragon. Mu Yun lowered his head, looked at the black scales on his body, and immediately changed his words, black dragon form. He didn't expect that the fruit he picked up would turn out to be the same as Kai. The same fruit, but the color of the fruit has changed. It's troublesome. It seems that I can only deal with you as soon as possible, and then settle accounts with Vegabank. Borsalino gathered flashes in his hands and jumped into the air. Yashikani no Magatama. Hot breath. Mu Yun exhaled hot breath, and after transforming into a dragon form, the power of the hot breath became several times stronger. The hot breath collided with the laser shot by Borsalino, and the two exploded in an instant, canceling each other out. Mu Yun stretched out a huge dragon claw and grabbed Borsalino in the air. Borsalino did not dodge, but raised his right foot and condensed a dazzling flash on his leg. The moment the dragon claw touched Borsalino's body, Borsalino turned his body into light and avoided Mu Yun's attack. He quickly raised his leg and kicked Mu Yun's chest with his right leg. Mu Yun took Borsalino's attack and chuckled. Borsalino suddenly felt something was wrong. Crack! Suddenly, several pillars of lightning fell from the sky and attacked Borsalino in front of Mu Yun. The terrifying white lightning turned into a white dragon and instantly swallowed Borsalino. Success! Mu Yun was excited as he watched Borsalino being swallowed by lightning. The Dragon Claw attack just now was just a companion attack. Lightning was the killer move that Mu Yun came up with against Borsalino. Soon, the light of lightning slowly dissipated. Borsalino touched his chin with his right hand and joked, "Are you shaving me with this kind of attack? How could this happen?" Mu Yun looked at Borsalino, who was unharmed, and shouted in despair, "Why don't you have any scars at all? Haha, do you think lightning can be compared with light?" Borsalino looked disdainful. He looked at Mu Yun in the air and said, "Speed is power." He saw his right leg condense light and quickly kicked Mu Yun to the ground. Mu Yun's huge dragon body hit the ground violently, and the strong impact raised dust. Yashikani no Magatama. Borsalino crossed his hands in front of his chest, and countless lights condensed in his hands and hit Mu Yun on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. Countless lasers kept hitting Mu Yun's body, and explosions came one after another. Mixed in the explosions was only Mu Yun's screams. After a long time, Borsalino stopped the light in his hand and whispered, "This should be enough." In the smoke and dust, Mu Yun had already changed back from the dragon form. His injuries could no longer support him to maintain that state. When the explosion disappeared, Mu Yun could vaguely feel that someone came to his side. "If you want to travel, where do you want to go?" Mu Yun forced himself to be energetic and whispered weakly, "As long as I leave here." After that, Mu Yun's consciousness gradually began to blur. "Then I wish you good luck." The burly man stretched out his left hand and pointed it at Mu Yun on the ground. On the palm of his left hand, there was a meat pad like a bear's paw, and a group of transparent bubbles in the shape of a bear's paw emerged from the palm. The bear's paw bubble wrapped Mu Yun lying on the ground, and Mu Yun disappeared instantly. In the sky, Borsalino's face changed, and his body turned into a golden light, and instantly flashed behind the burly man. "Bartholomew Kuma, do you know what you are doing now?" Kuma smiled and looked up at the sky, saying, "I am just helping the Navy to eliminate the obstacles in front of us. Isn't this the duty of the Shichibukai like us?" Borsalino's expression was gloomy, his body turned into light, and he chased towards the sky. Bang! A muffled sound. Kuma's right fist was wrapped with armed color domineering, and he quickly hit Borsalino. In an instant, Borsalino's right leg was wrapped with domineering, and it collided with Kuma's fist. "You want to help that guy escape, right?" Borsalino looked at the big bear in front of him and asked, "I don't know what you're talking about." Big Bear retracted his right hand and replied calmly, "I just want to learn from you and see if this body is suitable for Dr. Vegabank's recent transformation." "You found the reason very quickly." Borsalino put down his right leg and looked at Big Bear meaningfully. "I just don't know if the 5 elders will agree with your lame excuse." After that, he disappeared from Big Bear's sight in an instant. Big Bear looked at the sparkling blue sea and smiled. "Young man, this is all I can do. The road ahead can only be carried out by yourself. The sea is vast and free. Go start your journey. Go meet different people. Go experience all kinds of wonderful adventures. Egghead, those who have woken up, take care of the injured on the ground. General Borsalino is still fighting. We should rush to help as soon as possible." "Yes, sir." Vice Admiral Stalabari commanded the naval soldiers who were gradually waking up and asked them to take care of the wounded who had not yet woken up. Although Borsalino rescued them all, the aftermath of the explosion still injured some soldiers. Stalabari could only take care of the wounded here and could not rush to the battlefield to support. After all, he could not ignore the lives of these soldiers. "What are the casualties?" Suddenly, a voice came from behind Stalabari. He looked back and saw that Borsalino was standing behind him at this time. Thanks to the commander, no soldiers died, but many soldiers were still affected by the explosion, but the injuries were not particularly serious. Stalabari saluted and reported the current situation to him. Borsalino nodded, patted his shoulder, and said, "Well done, deal with the situation here as soon as possible. I will report the situation to the marshal. After that, Borsalino walked towards the interior of Head Island. Looking at Borsalino's back, Stalaberi frowned. Why is there no trace of the experimental subject? Did Admiral Borsalino accidentally kill him? Stalaberi saw that Borsalino did not bring Mu Yun here. He thought he accidentally killed Mu Yun. After all, he was the Admiral, the strongest combat force of the Navy. How could the experimental subject escape from the Admiral's hands? There is only one possibility, which is being killed. Stalaberi thought he had guessed the answer and said with regret, "What a pity, that kid has good physical fitness. If he joins the Navy for training, he may become the strongest force in the Navy in the future." Now that the kid is dead, Admiral Borsalino may be scolded by Marshal Sengoku again. Marineford, Navy Headquarters, Marshal's Office. What? You actually let an experiment with awakened conqueror's haki run away from Egghead Island. And that experiment ate a devil fruit and turned into a dragon like Kaido? Borsalino, how do you do things? Marshal Sengoku's roar instantly spread from the office. The roar came out of the room, scaring the non-commissioned officer passing by the door to fall to the ground. It's no wonder that Marshal Sengoku was so angry. The Lunaria experiment was the one that the 5 elders specifically asked to be taken over. Unexpectedly, this unexpected situation happened when he was about to be transported to the ship. Now not only did the experiment escape, but he also awakened the conqueror's haki. In the end, he ate the artificial fruit and turned into a giant dragon and let him run away? Are you still a user of the shining fruit? Such a big person slipped away in front of you, don't you know to chase him? Sengoku roared, questioning Borsalino on the other side of the Den Den Mushi. On the other side, Egghead Island. Borsalino casually put his legs on the table, looking at the furious Sengoku like Den Den Mushi on the table, and explained, "I can't do anything. When he ran away, Dekuma blocked me." Dekuma? How could that guy? The Sengoku like Den Den Mushi frowned in thought. Who knows? Borsalino put his hands behind his head, lay on the chair, and said softly, "Maybe he is expressing his dissatisfaction with us." Sengoku on the Den Den Mushi said seriously, "I know about this. Find the photo of the experiment, and I will ask them to issue a reward. As for Dekuma's problem." Sengoku was silent for a while, sighed and said, "Let the higher-ups worry about it. Dekuma's affairs are very complicated, and his affairs have always been managed by the world government, so it is not easy for him to interfere in the affairs of the world government. After all, the Navy is also a subordinate department of the world government." That's it, Borsalino, just take care of Vegabank, you don't have to worry about this matter anymore. After saying that, Sengoku on the other side of the Den Den Mushi hung up the phone. Just do your duty. Borsalino closed his eyes and muttered softly, "Marineford, Navy Headquarters, Marshal's Office." Ha ha ha, Sengoku, it's really rare that there are still things that give you a headache. In front of Sengoku's desk, an old man with short silver gray hair was holding scallops in his hand and eating them in big mouthfuls. "Garp, don't talk nonsense. Don't I have enough headaches? Especially your Revolutionary Army leader, who took action again a few days ago. You have the leisure to eat here. Can you go and take care of him?" Sengoku's veins popped up, and he pounded the desk hard, shouting at Garp in front of him. "Ha ha ha, the kids are all grown up. How can they listen to me?" Garp laughed and said, "Instead of caring about that unfilial son, it's better to take care of the grandson." When he thought of his grandson who was far away in the windmill village in the East China Sea and clamored to be a pirate, Garp suddenly felt that the scallops in his hand were not fragrant. It's all the fault of that red-haired guy. Why go to the windmill village for no reason? When Garp thought of this, he was furious. "Zhanghua, I'm going out to relax. Don't come to me if you have nothing to do." After saying that, Garp got up and walked out of Zhanghua's office. Looking at Garp's back as he left angrily, Zhanghua sighed. Every family has its own problems.